Absolute Batman, probably the best Batman comic out there right now. That is to say, if you're a new reader and want to get into Batman, please read anything else. Well, maybe avoid Injustice. And don't read All-Star Batman. I also personally wouldn't recommend The Dark Knight Returns. It's good, but it's not an entry-level Batman story in my opinion. I don't know why all the movies read it. I'd also avoid Under the Red Hood. Another great Batman book, but you should probably know a little bit more lore before you read that. The new Chip Zdarsky run also isn't great. You should maybe also avoid. So to start off, I've actually already made Absolute Batman. Last November, I made this guy when the run started. It's also probably why he looks like this. I was never happy with him. Something always felt wrong about the way I made him. Here's how he looks compared to normal-sized human characters I've made. Obviously massive. Maybe too massive. The main problem I think this Batman has is just he's simply too big. In all the wrong ways. Next to a normal 6-foot character, he looks like he's more 8 feet tall. Here's him next to the Hulk, who's supposed to be 7'7" in Marvel Rivals. In the comics, Absolute Batman is only 6'9". I say only as if it's small, but if comparing them, that should be the height of Thor, not the Hulk. If anything, Batman is more Groot height. In fact, I might use him as a base for Groot. Now, I used a lot of materials to make Absolute Batman. Some materials I'm actually in a bit of desperate need to get, because I've run out of them and I currently can't find more. Like, the most important part. His skin color mainly. So, then I got the perfect idea. I'm really going to need to recycle a lot of material to make this guy, which if you've read Absolute Batman, then you can probably tell that this is the most Absolute Batman way to make an Absolute Batman. Can you tell I like saying Absolute Batman? The first thing I want to do is get this suit off. I make every one of my plush doll customs with the intention that one day I want to remove it. Whether that be a new suit or to remake a costume, however sometimes I don't do a good job at making the suit removable, even if it isn't sewn to the body. For example, with Batman here, I put too much armor around the neck, so now I can't remove the suit without possible damage. This is no biggie because eventually I pry him free. I'm not going to be needing that anymore. Actually, I am. That would be a huge waste. Now I can get a look at the ridiculous body I made. What was I thinking? First of all, the proportions are all off. The torso is so small and the arms are too skinny. The legs also just look weirdly attached to his body. The first thing I do is completely dismember him. Anytime I ever do this, I always feel kind of bad, which I think makes me a normal, sane person. Once the body's in pieces, I cut apart the torso. Then take the stuffing out. There's also a fair bit of chest muscle that I have to remove. Very painful for me considering how I don't like making abs. I take the pieces of the torso and use my Marvel Rivals Thor body as a template to cut around. I don't cut it exact because I still want him to be a bit bigger than Thor. I repeat this process for the rest of the body parts. This is easily the most stressful part of the body because it's crucial to keep in mind that you can only take away, you cannot add. Another piece of advice I'd add is that sometimes to get what you want, your cut's just gonna look weird. Sometimes you just gotta trust the process. With the body cut out, I can sew it together again. This is pretty standard stuff. I use all the stuffing I took out and just put it back in. I mainly want to reuse it because the stuffing is already all weird and balled up from being in the original for so long. Surprisingly, I actually used most of the stuffing in this one. I didn't try to, but I guess I just understuffed the original. Because I've already come so far, I give him some extra muscle on his back and some on his chest. I gotta say, looking at the completed body, I'm pretty satisfied with my current result. Here's all the leftover material. I'm gonna put that away for later in case I need it. I can't go wasting this stuff, especially when it's like some of the last of it that I have. Here's a new body in the old suit. Luckily, he's shorter than Hulk. Here's how he stacks up next to Captain America. And finally, the puny Moon Knight. But of course, I'm not finished. Now, I wouldn't have torn this guy apart without a plan. I also wouldn't have done it if I didn't have a plan to make him even better than he was before. That'd be pretty sad if I downgraded him. So all this really started when I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw a picture taken at some sort of convention of an upcoming Absolute Batman figure that's being made. Now, I saw this and I was wowed. I mean, I really, really like this. And then I took a look at my Absolute Batman. Inadequate. I decided to remake him, deeply inspired by this Absolute Batman. So, to start off, I'm going to make the base of his costume. When making the base, I make sure to hide the seams strategically where I know I'll be adding more layers on top. And then I add on those layers. Would this be considered part of the base? I mean, I guess technically it is. The thing about this part is that it feels kind of tedious at times, adding all of these layers over top of like the base layer I already made, and then I'm like, oh damn, am I kind of wasting material because I'm like padding so many things over? But in the end product, even though it's kind of small, it does add a lot to the overall costume. With the addition of the gloves, I decided to get to some detailing, naturally starting with the legs and the armor bits on there. When looking at reference material for this guy, one of the main things I really need to pay attention to is what's the least amount of work I can do to make this look like it's a lot. Because obviously, especially in the armor bits, there's just too many small details on him that I could realistically put on without it just looking like visual garbage. Take my Sam Raimi Spider-Man, for example. In the past, I tried to make him with an accurate amount of webbing to what he has on the movie suit, but when I remade him years later, I realized I didn't need to do all that, and thus pulled back on the webbing to a reasonable amount. Still similar while being different. It's more about the spacing than it's about the actual amount. There is also just a lot that can be done in the end with paint, especially on this Batman, which you will see soon. For the shoulder neck trap part, I make it look quick and painless with editing, but in reality this took me way too long. You gotta remember, I spend as much time, if not more, cutting things out than I do sewing them together. No, I definitely take a lot more time cutting them out than sewing them together. If I included the cutting process in these videos, they'd be double the length. I mean, look to the beginning of the video. I spent a minute and a half of making the body, actually sewing it. Simply 30 seconds. The other minute went to cutting it out. There's so much work I have to do in general that I just leave out of these videos so they're more well-paced. Or I just blast through them, like I am right now. If I could, which I think I've mentioned before, I would just record all these from a top-down angle as a time-lapse, because I think that would look cool. Even though something like this Batman is unrealistic to do that for, because I think he took me around like 2 straight days of work adding all of it up. But, you know, I don't have the patience for that, nor would it be a very entertaining video. I did actually make a video like that back in 2023 before I even started uploading weekly. Naturally, it was a Batman video where I make animated series Batman. It's up on my Instagram right now if you want to, see it, if you're curious. The pouches on Batman are actually really annoying because I have to cut them out and stuff them to make them appear more 3D. This is a technique I also used on my Punisher in a different video. That's the nice thing about using similar methods or templates in everything that I make. I can use it as a not so subtle excuse to constantly cross-promote other videos. I'll be transparent about it, but I won't stop doing it. Otherwise, how will you know that I made Venom from the Venom movies? Or Sonic the Hedgehog? I actually forgot about Venom completely until like a little while ago when I was looking through old videos, when I was making my big year-end 2025 video. And I was like, oh my god, yeah, that's right, I made this. And I think I just used it as a vessel to complain about Venom, and then just forgot about it. I guess that's emblematic of the Venom movies in general. Did you know I made the protagonist from Sifu? Like the game Sifu. Totally forgot I did that too. I've been making a lot of gaming characters. This is my first just straight comic character. Like I've ever made. I've never made a character just from a comic book. It's always from a movie or a show or my own design or a video game. This is the first ever time I've done it from a comic book. I do have my reasons though. Mainly because when characters in comics are drawn, they're the hardest to keep consistent panel to panel or across several issues. That being a new artist being hired, or them just generally not being consistent with their design, or like whatever sheet they have for reference. Like, can you imagine if I wanted to make a mainline 616 Spider-Man? I just have to pick an era or an artist and run with it. Like Ramita, Bagley, or McFarlane. I know some of you got wet when I mentioned McFarlane. And you know, I could do like Alex Ross, but I feel like if I did Alex Ross, it wouldn't be like, oh, I did a comic Spider-Man based off Alex Ross. It would be, I made Alex Ross. Like, that feels like its own thing because his style is so specific to him. I think I would probably just generalize what the character looks like. However, if I made a mainline comic Batman, it would be easier because I would just make Jim Lee's rendition of him. That's what I imagine most people would think when they think Batman, is Jim Lee's art. I feel like with DC characters, you could actually just get away with that a lot. Like Superman, there's a very basic Superman you think of. Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, The Flash. I guess Wonder Woman's more up to interpretation because I like the star-spangled underwear, but I also like her in pants. And I also like that skirt that she has. I like her new 52 design. I like Wonder Woman. I like Wonder Woman a lot. I'm gonna make Wonder Woman. I want to make Wonder Woman. Is that a spoiler? Does it matter? Have you even watched this far into the video? It's not a long video either. Pay attention. I'm gonna start putting Discord sounds in these, so you like pay attention. Just play a random Apple alarm sound, just to mess with you. Maybe throw a Vine boom in there. Sometimes I remember I have sound effects. Using a gray brush Sharpie and silver paint was a really risky move for me to do at this point, but I think it really pays off. Like, I think this Batman would have been worse off for it if I hadn't been willing enough to take the swing on adding that detail. Really helps sell the grunge that Batman overall has. I also just really like the look of all the scratches and, like, how worn down the suit looks. I think this move in general really just shows how much better I've gotten at making these in the last 8 months since I've been making so many Rivals characters. They're so richly detailed with things like this that I've started incorporating that into other non-Rivals specific or Rivals related projects. To be fair, besides Rivals, I haven't really had much opportunity to make other characters. Not that I'm complaining, I enjoy doing what I'm doing, but every once in a while something else comes along and I'm like, oh, I gotta do that. For the cowl, this one is one of the most important parts of the suit. Usually I think I'm pretty good about making them. The biggest hurdle I have to overcome is the ears. Something I used to do is make it separate from the base of the head, but now I've just started incorporating it directly into the cowl to varying degrees of success. Here I think it absolutely works. I did want to do the ears where he could pull them out and use them as knives like in the comics, but I didn't really find a way to do that with the materials that I had. And to be honest, I didn't even really try. But the idea is cool. The cowl is kind of a tight fit. Given the material I used, the felt is a little more rough and durable while still being kind of thin. Luckily, there's enough leeway with it that it is able to smoothly fit over the head now after a bit of stretching. Because the ears are so skinny, I put this washing machine safe plastic mesh in them to keep them up as opposed to just stuffing them like I have on other Batmen that I've made. The facial details on the cowl are fairly straightforward, being the nose, eyes, and eyebrows. I'm actually very happy with how this turned out. Not even necessarily to the reference, but I think he even just looks quite true to the comics. With the top of the cowl / helmet done, I can do the rest. This is simply just adding some pieces to his cheeks to form the mouth hole better and adding plating for the rest of the spine. Then I can paint the scratches and spikes on. I was a little lazy on the spikes, only really making them paint dots as opposed to full-fledged spikes like I have on my Rivals Magic. But if you think I'm individually cutting out spikes and sewing them on, then you're an insane person. I wouldn't do that. That would be unbelievably tedious and not as rewarding. The cape isn't a normal cape. To be honest, I don't really understand how it works. Like, when he glides. Like, how does it connect together? Like, I know he invented it, I just don't really buy into the logistics of it and how it connects and all that. Kind of funny that that's where I draw the line. Everything else, totally cool. But a cape that glides and turns into swords? Get that away from me. Not buying it, buddy. Anyway, with that finished, Absolute Batman is finally absolute. It may not seem like it, but this was around a month and a half of on and off work. To be fair, I also made like 3 Rivals characters while making him. Overall, I'd say I'm really proud of this. He turned out really well, specifically the body. I think I nailed the musculature, height, and proportions. I think this may be one of, if not my favorite thing I've made for a video on this channel. He turned out better than I had hoped. With how well he turned out, I'd absolutely be down to do more Absolute characters. The only catch is, I'd kind of have to make my own designs based off the comics, since I don't really have an in-art to go off of for, say, Superman or Wonder Woman or The Flash. If you do want to see me do that, be sure to tell me. I read all my comments. Yes, that's right, all one of them. I'd like to mention here at the end of the video that there are no official patterns for anything made in the video. Everything you see here was made completely free-handed with the exception of the body, which is cut out using a basic body template that is modified in the cutting process. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Videos like these take a lot of time and effort to put together, so I really appreciate it when you watch till the end. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.
I'm not grilled cheese. I'm just queso. What am I doing here? I don't belong here.